Well, let's talk interior for your first Gen F body car here, in particular 1968 fiber, known as the Great Pumpkin here on our channel. As you can tell, the interior is looking more and more complete and looking super clean, minus the fact that we don't have a passenger seat. Well, let's say we saved the best for last. I'm going to show you how to redo these seats. I had purchased the covers from Ames Performance, this PUI brand. They're pre-sewn and stitched. They work pretty nice, and I would say they're reasonably priced, and they aren't overly complicated to install. That's what we're going to get into here today, because you can see here, the passenger seat, that looks not so great compared to what I have in there. This seat is, fortunately, the foam is not all broke down. It is not torn up. The seat cover is not damaged, so it's really basically removing the old cover and installing the new, and put our seat back on, of course, and in place. But if your foam is damaged, you can buy replacement foam on them. But in this case, I won't have to, because I haven't had to on the other seats, and they were about the same condition, but they just look sad. We can get this thing docked up. That's what the video is going to be good here today. But first things first, we need to get a plan to tear this thing apart, and I'll show you how to get that done. Let's start with here. We're going to take the seat apart. I'm going to start with the bottom. I'm going to take the seat tracks off the bottom. It's just a bolt here, one. There's one down here, 2, 3, 4, and of course remove the spring. What I like to do then is just media blast these and then clear coat them, because from the factory, well, they're just bare metal. Well, the rust is kind of unsightly, but painting them isn't necessarily correct. So again, it's going to do a quick little media blast bath, and then we're going to clear coat them. So I'm going to get these ripped off first. Go ahead and do that. And the next thing we're going to have to do, we're going to pop the seat from top to bottom apart. That's done by taking off, there's a C-clip here, or E-clip, and take a little spring washer off. And then we got to make sure you ate your wheeze when you literally have to pull this thing off of that post. But I'll show you how to do that. Let's get these seat tracks ripped off first. All right, so here's a little before and after. Obviously before, and this one would be after. That's why we sandblast these, make them look real nice. Now, like I said, these were bare steel from the factory, but it cleans up real good. Just sandblast that, and then we'll go ahead and clear coat this and let that dry while we work on the rest of the seat. But first, I need to blast this one just the same and get them clear coated. We'll get back to working on that seat. Now back to the seat. We're going to work on separating the top from the bottom. That way we can reupholster them individually. And to do so, we got to take the Phillips screw out here that has like a tie down strap. Now this is only on the passenger side, but we'll get that out of there. Phillips screw, it looks like. And then what we'll do is I'll clean this hardware up, and we'll go ahead and see how it has like a cadmium or a silver finish. We'll go ahead and clean this up and paint it silver. We also repaint these parts of the seat silver. There's that plastic cover, so let's go over top of them. You still kind of see the inside. So once I get it torn apart, we'll go ahead and shoot that little bit of silver paint too. But next thing now is there's a C-clip or E-clip, whatever world you live in, I guess. And you pop that thing off there. And probably send it flying and lose it someplace, but you know. Alright. There's that one. Now this kind of gets stuck on there. You kind of just work it off, but big pry bar sometimes, but you gotta put those back on, help keep a little spring tension on it. But I don't know, we might just do this the easy way today. Big pry bar. Now I gotta do the same to the other side. Except for this side has that cover on, which is virtually worthless. It's so dry rotted. So I'm gonna have to get some of these. And then repeat process. Now with both sides removed, the next thing is, like I said, we got to literally pry this off of there. What I find works best is place your foot inside the seat here and just stand on the seat for some leverage and just pick up right here and pull that thing right off there. Like it's that easy, right? It really isn't too bad, but that's how that goes. Now we've got our seat separated top to bottom. Well, let's talk hardware. Go ahead and pop off the seat latch, 2 1/2-inch head bolts. I go sandblast this, go ahead and paint it silver so it looks a little better than this. There's a little rubber bumper for the seat stop that I have actually purchased a new one, so we can pitch that bad guy. And then here on the ends of the seat, there's this nylon washer. I just clean these up and reinstall them. They're kind of a gray plastic. They never look okay, so I'll keep those handy here. And then, like I talked about earlier, these pieces here, we're going to clean them up lightly, sand them, and then we'll repaint them silver. take the cable off, paint the ends, paint the screws. So this is some of the hardware behind the scenes things we're going to take care of while working on the upholstery. So I'll go ahead and rip this part here off, and then I will go sandblast and paint our couple little pieces here. I almost forgot one here. Check this out right here. The little screw right here, when the seat's all together, that's what rides on this here. It's the bump stop. So you need to take that out there. Again, it's just a Phillips screw. I'm going to take that out and clean it up just like we did the rest of the hardware. All right, now the hardware has all been stripped off and taken care of. We need to paint these next. So that's why we're going to go ahead and take the back of the seat apart first, so the material is completely out of the way, so we can clean these up and get a coat of paint on it. And while it dries, we'll actually assemble the lower half here. So first things first, when it comes to seat covers, well, they're only held together with hog rings. Now, maybe you don't know what those are, but it's basically a piece of coat hanger gauge kind of metal looped around, just clamped into place. And what I'll go do and actually just cut them all loose with a pair of side cuts here and get them all broke loose and get them taken off of here. And then once they're out of the way, then I'll show you how to pull that seat cover off. Now, the other thing you want to do, if you don't know, wouldn't be a bad idea, maybe take a picture of the location of some of the stuff. There's a strap here that comes clean off the bottom, and that gets pulled up to here to keep the bottom pulled into place. So just remember that, or take a picture. That's why we got cameras, right? Pretty much all of us have a camera phone anymore. But for the most part, this material is so dry rot, it just crumbles away. But there's a couple layers here. The one underneath, this is the seat cover, and this is the seat foam. We don't want to take that off. We're only going to do the outside cover. So kind of make note of which ones are outside cover versus the foam. So see this here coming loose. So go ahead and go all the way around and cut all those out of the way, and you'll see how the seat cover comes off. Again, make note of things like this here. See, there's a hog ring holding that cover on the side here. So there we go, starting to come apart. I'll go ahead and do the whole thing all around the outside, and then I'll get you back. I got the perimeter all peeled off. You can start to see the seat covers wanting to come off, but there'll be something else going to be holding you up. Behind this section of the seat, there's actually a listing, so I think they call that helps give it the contour. It actually pulls the seat cover back to the foam. So we can peel the edge up, and you'll see it right here. So what we need to do then, this is where I do things a little different than how they did it from the factory, but just be patient with me. What I end up doing is we're going to peel the cover off. I'll put the camera down for a second, and then we'll take a razor blade, and I'm going to leave the listing, the little cardboard, whatever barb in here, I'm going to leave it in place. I'm going to cut the fabric off of it, and I'll show you why here in just a second. I'm going to flip the top of the cover over. Now this cover is actually junk. I don't have to be nice to it, but it's good practice. That's how you're going to have to put it back on. You got to stretch it over it. There we go. Now, this is what we're talking about. Get you a nice, hopefully sharp razor blade, and instead of taking all the hog rings out of it, I'm just going to cut it. Now we'll get the same thing on each side here. Now this is when we look at our foam, make sure it's not deteriorated, chunks missing out, it rotted out. This one still looks pretty pliable and good, so I think we're going to call that okay. But what we're going to do next on the seat back, we're going to prep and paint these, then we're going to tear the base apart. All right, while our seat back is drying, the base is a little bit different. You only have hog rings here, 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 and here, so it's pretty quick actually get at least the cover off. Then we'll do the same thing, cut the listing with a razor blade. This here just actually kind of peels out of the channel, out of the bottom there, so I'll rip all that out. Then we get to the listing. I'll do the same thing. We're going to just cut it out. Again, I'll show you why, so you better stay tuned, make your life a whole lot easier. But the thing to look for on the bottom, though, these springs like to break, so inspect the springs and make sure they're still intact. None of them are broken. misplaced or anything like that, but these ones all look pretty good. These seats are great cores, fortunately, but just do a little restretching of the cover. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel all this stuff off here like this, and then I'll get these hog rings peeled off, and I'll flip it over and show you how to cut the listings out of this one. What I want you to take note of here is during deconstruction is reverse of basically putting it back together. So make note of how you're tearing it apart. When I go to put the new seat cover base on, I'm gonna lay it on just about like this. Then we're gonna do the sections here, the listings, and then stretch it over the top of it. Now same thing, I'm gonna take my razor blade, cut 1, 2, and 3. The only thing different about the base, and this you'll find if you're doing standard, not deluxe seats like we have here, but standard seats, they use a metal listing bow. And you have to recycle that on the car. So this one's got the metal hanger right inside here. That's what it kind of looks like, but see if I can fish it out with one hand. And the answer is, survey says, nope. Okay, here's what this looks like here in this rear piece. This folds all the way underneath the front. This is what your hog rings are gonna lock around. So you need to recycle these. Like I said, if you're doing a set of standard bucket seats, you'll find the listing bows are these right here. So it's a little different to get those put into shape. But deluxe seats, this is what we're going to do this time around. We're going to cheat. I'm going to slice all 3 of these off and get this seat cover off. Okay, seat cover has been removed. Again, inspect the foam. This looks really good. It's still pliable, soft, no chunks missing out of it. No animals or rodents have chewed it up. And here's the reason why. Because here's what has to happen to get that shape back. Now the factory, I'm pretty sure, affixes the foam to the seat cover, then they stretch the whole thing over as a unit and then hog ring it together. Well, I'm just not that motivated to pull this foam off. It's a lot more work in my opinion. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by tucking the seat cover like it did, look inside out. Then we're going to actually use the hog rings to tie it right back to the bow it's already in here. That still gets it pulled to the same height, but you can actually see what you're doing. It's a whole lot quicker and easier. Now we'll start on the forward one here because this is the back of the seat. Front of the seat, we're going to start here in the very center. Make sure we got our seat cover center. Hog ring, keep kind of going back and forth till we get the whole front section done. Then we're going to kind of pull it back a little bit and do one side and then the other, and then we'll basically stretch the cover over and then hog ring the rear of it after tucking in this piece here. But let's get started by putting that in place and put a few hog rings in. This is that front one we're going to do first. Like I said, we'll lay this in the groove, and we'll find our center point side to side. Then we're going to take our hog rings, and we're going to be able to take the pliers and actually hook this one and hook our original listing in there and pull this thing into place. So I'm going to try to line up our seams with our grooves here. We'll go ahead and start putting a few hog rings in there. So I'd say that looks pretty good. Like I said, we're using kind of like this seam here. It needs to line right above that groove. And this seam here needs to line right above that groove. That's how I'm kind of gauging it as for left and right. And then front to back, doesn't matter yet. We'll go ahead and put one right here in the center and see what that looks like. And there we go. That's secure at the same height. So I'll go ahead and keep going back and forth and stitching that down. The camera out of focus. Okay, here we go. Here's what we have. Tucked down in here tight. All of it's in there real nice. Now this is where you're going to shake your head. Some people do this professionally, go, John, that's not how it's supposed to be done, but it works for me. It's a lot easier, saves on the hands. So that's going to leave us a nice seam. By the time it's all said and done, you'll start to see it's kind of pulling that down in. That's what we kind of want. Now the deluxe seat has a little more, the standard seat has a little more cushion here at the front edge. The deluxe seems to be a little bit flatter, but now I'll go ahead and do the same thing to this seam. Go ahead and do all of it just the same and get that thing pulled down and in tight. All right, I got the whole right side here all pulled down real tight and snug. Now stuff like this you might trim off. It may leave a little bump in the seat, so I'm going to probably cut that off. I'll go ahead and pop the other side. And I'll show you them. I'll flip it over and start stretching so we can get this thing attached. Just thought of something. I'm going to make sure you really see what I'm doing here, because here's the listing. The dark gray is the one that came with the new seat covers. Here's the old one. If you look carefully, dig around in here, you'll see the original hog ring right underneath my thumb there. I try to clamp it on both sides so it keeps it pulled down tight. So by the time it's all said and done, that's not going to rip out of the foam. We're actually attached to the original listing, just like they originally assembled it. Because like I said, some of you are going to be shaking your heads, but this makes it a whole lot easier to me, and it seems to make sense. So I want to make sure you saw that up close. So I'm going to flip this thing over and start stretching. Now, we're going to have to cut holes in the side of this for these studs to come through, but that doesn't seem to be a big problem, so you can do it afterwards. But go ahead and start to stretch the cover over. I'm trying to push the cover back this way to keep us getting wrinkles in the sides. So good. Okay, let's see. Go ahead and flip it over. That's what the cardboard is out here for, to try to protect my new seat cover a little bit. Now, this spring's on the seat. You can actually push on it and give you a little more slack to pull the cover over the top here. There we go. Okay, looks good. Pull that up like so. Now, again, not going to cut the holes in the side until I'm all said and done. Now, somewhere is that rear bow. Right here. Now, that slides in through this rear gray part here. And that's what's going to tie into here, here, and here. So get it centered. And what we'll do then, I'll bring that just like that, and we'll pull all this over. Now let's take a peek at the other side here. Okay, got a little bit of a pulls down just a little bit. I'd say that ought to work. Now, when it comes to this plastic stuff on this side here, you actually gotta just pull it over the edge, pull the plastic here underneath, and it'll actually lock into place like that. Let's go ahead and do that all around the whole seat base. And then our base actually cut our little holes here for the studs, and the bottom is done. All right, well, now it's all together, I can go ahead and reinstall my clean up seat tracks. Go about like so. Now the fun part, we have to relocate the holes for these right here. And there's a rubber bumper that goes in here to actually kind of help us pull that little ring cloth too. And that little latch mechanism goes on this side. Now I suppose we could kind of do it like I did the carpet, put those bolts in first so we can kind of feel them on the way through. Maybe that might be the way to do it in the future, but I've always seemed to get pretty lucky. You just take the pick and kind of probe around until I finally find where the holes are at. So I plan on doing about the same thing here, but if you guys didn't see the headliner video, but go ahead and what you do, I probably should have done, I didn't think of it, put the bolts in the seat, put the cover over it, and you can feel then through the seat where those bolts are at. You might be able to cut through the trail just enough to sneak the bolt out. Same as that little screw that goes on this side here. But I'm going to go fishing and try to find the holes and get these things mounted. We got the rubber bump stop here, and I got the latch that goes here. All right, now we'll get the latch and the bump stop put in place. Probably my least favorite part here, we just go ahead and cut these out with a razor blade. You can see where it wants to poke through. Just make a small little X and split it open, and it'll pop right through. But can't hold the camera and do it at the same time. So you get the idea. I'm going to go ahead and cut both sides, and our base will be done. There you have it. Bottom of the seat's all squared away and done. Our silver paint has dried. And basically repeat the same process. We'll pull the cover, kind of turn it inside out. Do this one first, and do the sides, and then pull it over the back. The only thing different on this is it doesn't have the little snap clips. You have to stretch it over and attach it with the hog ring. So it's pretty much the same process for all of the seats, except for unless you're doing standard seats. You can't cheat like this on those listings unless you buy new ones, or make them out of coat hangers, because they're metal on those seats. But these ones works pretty good. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing to the top, and I'll show you how to get that put back onto that. Let me get you one last view here what we're going to do. Again, try to get this centered left and right. That one's there. That one's there. I'm going to start with this one first. We're going to try to tie it close to where the factory did the hog rings on. That gives you the best contact and best pull. So I'll go ahead and do that on here. Like so. There you go. Now you've seen it up close. Hope that gets you an idea. Now you can buy hog rings and hog ring pliers pretty cheap from just about any place, really, but get a decent pair. I had a real cheap flimsy pair and I kept breaking the pivot out of it. Not worth it. So buy a decent pair if anything. You're going to do this, so your hands will like you for it, but you get the idea. We'll go ahead and bust out this and we'll flip it over. We got all the listings tied here in the middle. Now we just got to stretch this over. I like to start up here in the top and kind of work it over the corners on the top first. That seems to work about the best for me. And like I said, there's probably some upholstery guy who does this professionally, and I bet you they do fantastic work looking at how I'm doing this and going, absolutely not. But I've always said it 100 times, and I'll probably say it again and again and again, the right way, the wrong way, and the VBG way. I just show you the results that I get when I'm done. And if you like it, great. If not, maybe you learn something. Like I said, maybe how not to do it. But this seems to work pretty good for me, and I also like to think that the more I can do myself, it's just more rewarding in the end. I got that sense of accomplishment that we got it done. So, all right, that's the corners up there. Seems to be working pretty good. Yeah, it looks real nice. Okay, now, gonna do the same here. Stretch that over the back. And begin to see the shape of the seat here. There we go. Now flip this thing on its face. I'll start working the back here. Now, when it comes to this, I like to fold that up like that. That little vinyl kind of gets covered up this way. Makes for a cleaner edge. Now we actually got to clamp this to here. Keep it somewhat pulled tight. And then we'll hog ring that there to the side. There's a hole right here. If I can get it to go, this one's being a little tricky. There we go. That time I got it. That keeps that pulled tight. Now this side, there's a hole there. We got to get it go around the latch. Gonna again fold that towards the sky. That kind of helps cover up all the insides of the seat. Now there's a like that. Now this opening here goes around the latch, so we'll end up having to pull that over. Now what we'll do now, same thing. We'll go ahead and pull this over and hog ring around the whole loop here. All right, a little note here when we get to the top. Make sure you put it on the inside, because that plastic rear seat cover has to go on here. So we want to stack it like this. Make sure you put it behind it. And there's little loops here on the top of the seat that you got to snag these things through. Kind of a pain to get it to go, but I'll get it. There you be, just like that. Got one more over here. Here's what that loop looks like there. You can kind of see it in front of my finger. That's what you're trying to stab through. Hook that listing and then the hog ring through that and tie all three. Tie them all together. The hog ring, listing, and the hoop on the seat. Like so. Alright, now the factory took it and kind of folded it like this. They put a hog ring kind of pulling it tight. So I think I'll do the same. All right, I'll do the same over here. And then I'll show you how to do the bottom there. All right, let's talk about the bottom here. Now, all you got to do basically is just pull this up. This will attach up here on this part of the seat. There's holes again like the outside radius. Things you got to look out for, make sure we get it centered over the latch mechanism. This latch has to clear there, so we got to get it pulled back tight enough. That way the latch can work freely. And I'd say that's where we need to put it at. So I'll go ahead and pull that up into place and hog ring it. Other than that, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you got this extra little tab here. You're going to pull that and tie it up here a little bit higher. That kind of makes this stay tight around that hinge. But that's really about all there is to do on that bottom side here. Pull it up into place. That should get us just about done. There we go. All done. Wrapped around the top here. Got the sides all done, all pulled into place. I could actually go put that plastic cover on the back if I wanted to, but I typically do that last so it doesn't get scratched up. But next thing is reattach the back to the base. Now this is very similar to disassembly. You're going to stand on it again. Put your plastic bushings into place first. That protects your fabric or the vinyl. And hook one side and stand on the other. I don't know if it matters which side you do first. Just be aware of what you're doing, I guess. I think we'll tip it up. Put my foot in the seat and hope that I ate enough Wheaties. There we go. Now, get all four of them here. Two of these spring washer thingies. That goes on first, then put your E-clip on. Be like a 9/16 socket than tapping on with a hammer. Makes it a whole lot easier. Okay, I realized after I did it on the video that you couldn't see what I was talking about, but I put the C-clip or E-clip already on, but look behind it. There's that spring washer. Take a socket and kind of hammer it past the groove. If not, I don't want to get hung up on the groove for the E-clip to go. So this is a 1/2-inch socket. Just kind of tap it on. It'll drive that spring washer on further. And I got both sides back on and the E-clip. So that is done. Now, technically, there's a little cover that goes over the hinges. Well, mine are still black. I didn't get them dyed yet, so we're going to have to do that at a later time. So basically, there you have it. Seat's all done, squared away. Happy with it. The back can be put on, but it's held on with 2 screws down here in the bottom. Take the latch. Latch is nice, and I put the latch again. Flips forward. I got to put the stop right here, and then put the return cable on it. And I think we're in pretty good shape, but put the back on, but you get the idea. There you have it, all in its infinite glory. Probably about 2.5 hours worth of work. Now, some of these wrinkles, they'll work themselves out as it sits. I didn't really leave these seat covers out in the sun like I had before, but this here part is where it's straight, so I'm pretty sure that's gonna be okay. If not, definitely a huge improvement over the dirty, cruddy, nasty seat. Things to keep in mind, a little chrome knob goes on that. A little chrome knob goes on here for the seat release. Try the seat release many times, make sure it works. It's latching fine, because there goes the whole seat. Now, got our latch here. Now, there's the screws that go on here, have a wash underneath them. That's the original. I kept those, got the stop put in place. That's in place. Got our cable here on and installed. It's kind of back here in the corner. So the only thing I don't have is these here. I need to get those painted white and get them put on, but this seat is done. Now, of course, being the first one to sit in is probably important. I'm working on getting it put in the car. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's 4 bolts to hold to the floorboard. Rear seat is similar to the front seats. The back's pretty easy, but just the biggest thing when it comes to doing upholstery of these seats, just make notes, take pictures, or do like I do, take a video of disassembly and do the reverse. But you always start with the listing rods in the center of it first, starting in the center, work your way out. And all seats work out to be about the same. Inspect your springs, inspect the foam. These seats is original foam. Could have put new ones in it, but they still look pretty good. They're still very comfy, so I'm gonna say these are gonna be okay, but you could always opt for new foam. Wouldn't hurt a thing, but I've never actually replaced the entire foam before. I've done pieces, but these ones are pretty good. So rambled on enough, gonna get the seat put in. I'm down to I think, axle noise, touch up the hinges, and put the air baffles underneath the hood, and then I think I'm done. So you don't want to miss the conclusion. We're going to see how much money we put into this old bird and tell me whether it was worth it or not. And what I'd like to know, what would you pay for someone to build a car like this? What do you think an actual shop would charge? Because I'm afraid that if I add all the numbers up, it's quite spendy actually. But again, we're not worried about labor. We're just concerned with parts. But if we did take it to a shop, what would it cost to build a car like this? Well, I'd like to find out. Maybe we can figure that out. But nonetheless, rambled on enough. I'm going to do the last couple of videos. Hope to see you guys then. And before we go, I went ahead and threw the seat in, but I want you to see this here. This is why I sandblast those seat tracks and put the new bolts in there. It just looks great. That's how it was from the factory. So we got some clear coat on it. Should last a whole lot longer. It'd be a whole lot more gooder. And I wanted you to see this interior on this car. Wow, that looks really sharp. And you really sharp super guys that know these cars very well, you might notice something that isn't quite how they came from the factory, but really nice addition to this car. It seems to fit pretty nice. So looking real good. Hope to see you guys next time.